Hello and welcome to your daily word. Hello everyone, I'm Pastor Kara, and today I want to share a thought with you from the story of a very inspiring woman in the Bible. Esther is a book in the Bible that gives a historical account of the time when God's people were under the rule of the Persian Empire. Esther, a young Jewish woman who was selected from many women and went through a long training and preparation process, finally captivated the heart and the eye of the king. After much time and effort, Esther was chosen as the new wife of the king, and he had much favor for her. While in such a position, the lives of her people were in jeopardy. An advisor to the king named Haman despised the Jewish people and wanted to see them eradicated. He especially hated a relative of Esther named Mordecai. When a decree was signed to kill the Jews, Mordecai went to Esther, and we're going to pick up the story from that moment in Esther chapter 4. It says, "When Queen Esther's maids and eunuchs came and told her about Mordecai, she was deeply distressed. She sent clothing to him to replace the burlap, but he refused it. Then Esther sent for Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, who had been appointed as her attendant. She ordered him to go to Mordecai and find out what was troubling him and why he was in mourning. So Hathach went out and found Mordecai in the square in front of the palace gate. Mordecai told him the whole story, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai gave Hathach a copy of the decree issued in Susa that called for the death of all Jews. He asked Hathach to show it to Esther and explain the situation to her. He also asked Hathach to direct her to go to the king to beg for mercy and plead for her people. So Hathach returned to Esther with Mordecai's message. Then Esther told Hathach to go back and relay this message to Mordecai. All the king's officials and even the people in the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king in his inner court without being invited is doomed to die unless the king holds out his golden scepter. And the king has not called for me to come to him for 30 days. So Hathach gave Esther's message to Mordecai. Mordecai sent this reply to Esther. Don't think for a moment that because you are in the palace, you will escape when all of the Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at this time, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this." Mordecai brings up a very interesting point to Esther. It wasn't coincidence that Esther was chosen from among all of the women that were presented to the king. It wasn't coincidence that she was given a powerful position. It wasn't coincidence that she became queen. It was all part of God's plan. It wasn't an accident that she was in the perfect place in the perfect time. No, it was God who had a grand orchestration put into place to have Esther there for that moment and that time. She was chosen for that time, that moment, and for the purpose of saving her people. It may seem extraordinary or something like a fairy tale to see these kinds of events unfold, but let me remind you of something. Esther was just a regular girl. A regular girl who was serving an extraordinary God. Never would she have dreamed that she could be the queen and that she would be put in the position that she was in to save her people from genocide. But God had a different plan. I want to encourage you today. You may think your life is plain, regular, or even mundane, but you serve an extraordinary God that has important plans for your life. You are in this time and place for such a time as this, so that you can be part of God's perfect and grand master plan. Esther ended up risking everything to go to the king and save her people. But it was God's plan all along, and he was with her through it all and used her to save her people. This regular girl who surrendered to an extraordinary God and accomplished an impossible task. What has God called you to do in this time? What is his purpose for you? Are you ready to surrender to whatever plan and purpose he has for your life? I want to encourage you today to surrender to him and to see the incredible plan and purpose he has for your life.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Come back tomorrow for the next Daily Word. God bless.